King Charles is in America. He landed in Washington on Sunday. He had tea with the President and the First Lady at the White House. He addressed both houses of Congress, only the second British monarch in history to do so. He will lay a wreath at the September 11th Memorial in New York. He will attend a community celebration in Virginia. His schedule is full from morning to evening for 4 days, and California is not on it. His son lives in California. His grandchildren live in California. Archie and Lilibet, the children he has reportedly longed to spend more time with as his health has become more uncertain, are approximately 2,700 miles from Washington. A short flight, a manageable detour, a visit that in any ordinary family would simply happen. It is not happening. And the question I want you to hold in your mind as we go through this story is not whether the snub, if that is even the right word, is intentional. The question is something more painful and more human than that. The question is what it costs a father to be this close and still not go. If you have followed the royal family for any length of time, and I suspect many of you have been watching this story for longer than most people realize, I think you will find this one worth staying with. And if you are new here and you are looking for a place that treats the royal story with genuine care and honesty, I would love for you to subscribe. It is one tap, and it means the world. Let me set the full scene, because context, as always, is everything. King Charles and Queen Camilla arrived in Washington on the 27th of April 2026. This is the first state visit by a British monarch to the United States since Queen Elizabeth came in 2007. The timing is significant. It coincides with the 250th anniversary of American independence, and it comes at a diplomatically delicate moment between the two countries, with tensions running quietly beneath the surface of the special relationship that both governments are working hard to maintain. The visit is, by any measure, a serious piece of diplomacy. Charles addressed Congress, he met the President and the First Lady, he attended a garden party at the British ambassador's residence, he will visit a national park, he will attend a block party celebrating America's anniversary. His schedule, as one correspondent put it, is packed from morning to evening. And in that packed schedule, there is a quiet, specific, unmistakable absence. Harry's team confirmed it to a major American broadcaster before the visit even began. No meeting was planned, no California detour was being considered, and the reason given by Harry's spokesperson was careful and precise. Since the trip is a working matter paid for by taxpayers in both countries, they said, it would be wholly inappropriate for the king to take time for personal visits given the tight schedule. Wholly inappropriate. Those are interesting words, not impossible, not desired, wholly inappropriate, as if the idea needed to be placed at a respectful distance before it could be properly declined. And here's the part that most people missed in the coverage of this story. Buckingham Palace did not echo that language. The palace did not confirm that no meeting was possible. They did not say the schedule prevented it, they simply did not comment, which means the door, from the palace's perspective, was neither opened nor firmly closed. That silence is telling, and it matters more than it first appears. Now, let us go back a little further, because this story has a before that makes the present moment significantly more charged. Last September, 7 months ago, something quietly extraordinary happened. Harry made a 4-day visit to the United Kingdom, and during that visit, he and his father met privately at Clarence House, just the two of them, 50 minutes together, reportedly over tea, in Charles's London residence. It was the first time they had been in the same room in 19 months.
Harry described that meeting afterwards with a particular kind of careful hopefulness. He told a journalist that his focus over the coming year really had to be on his father. He said the visit had brought something closer. He said, with the quiet urgency of a man who understood the stakes, that he did not know how much longer his father had. I do not know how much longer my father has. That is not a diplomatic statement. That is a son speaking, a son who wrote in his memoir that he missed his father, who told the BBC that he would love reconciliation with his family, who has never, in any interview or any public statement, closed the door on the possibility of coming home in some form. And then, silence. Charles and Harry have not met in person since that September tea at Clarence House. And now Charles is in America, and California is not on the itinerary. What happened in those 7 months? That is the question nobody has a clean answer to. Sources close to the royal family suggest that the relationship between Charles and Harry remains fragile in ways that are not always visible from the outside, that the spare memoir, with its account of a physical altercation with William, its criticism of Camilla, and its detailed and painful account of the family's failings, left wounds that 50 minutes over tea in September have not fully healed, that William, in particular, has maintained a harder line than Charles on the question of any reconciliation, that the brothers have not spoken in a meaningful way for longer than most people realize. And this is where things take an unexpected turn, because the story of Charles not visiting Harry in California is not simply a story about a father and a son. It is a story about two different positions within the same family. And those two positions, Charles's and William's, are by multiple accounts not the same position at all. Reports suggest that Charles and William disagree on the question of Harry and Meghan, that Charles, by temperament and by the urgency of his own health situation, leans towards some form of reconciliation, that he wants his grandchildren to know him, that the September tea at Clarence House was not an accident. It was a choice that Charles made, according to sources, over the quiet objections of advisors who felt it sent the wrong signal. And William's position, by contrast, is reported to be considerably less accommodating. He has not spoken publicly about Harry since before the spare memoir was published. He has not confirmed or denied any private contact. He has maintained a silence that is, in its own way, as eloquent as anything he could have said. One source described it plainly. They said, Charles wants to find a way back. William wants to protect the institution, and right now, those two things are pulling in different directions. And California, sitting 2,700 miles from Washington, where Harry and Meghan and Archie and Lilibet are living their California life, is caught in the middle of those two directions. Now, I want to be fair to the official explanation, because it is not entirely without merit. There are real and practical reasons why a California detour was complicated on this particular trip. Charles was in Washington for diplomatic business, serious, taxpayer-funded, government-organized business. Diverting to California to see Harry would have done something very specific to the coverage of the entire state visit. It would have become the story. It would have overshadowed the address to Congress and the wreath-laying at the September 11th memorial and the anniversary celebrations. One royal commentator put it directly: if Charles meets Harry, that becomes the story, and the point of this trip is not Harry. That is true, and it deserves to be said. But here is what is also true, and this is the thing that I have been sitting with since the story broke. Harry said in September that his focus had to be on his father, that he did not know how much longer Charles had. Those were not casual words. They were the words of a man calculating time, measuring what remained, trying to understand how much opportunity was left for something to change between them.
And now his father is in the same country. 4 days, Washington, New York, Virginia, and not California. Some people will read that as a statement, as the palace making clear through the architecture of a schedule that the terms of the relationship have not changed, that Harry has not yet done what he would need to do, and sources have been specific about what that means: withdrawing the memoir, apologizing publicly, making some form of gesture toward the institution he left to earn back the proximity he once had. Others will read it more charitably as a genuinely complicated diplomatic trip, where the complications were not personal but practical, where the schedule was built around government priorities rather than family feeling, where the absence of California does not mean the absence of a desire to close the gap. And perhaps, and I think this is the most honest reading, both things are true at once. The practical complications are real, and the personal distance is also real, and they exist together in the same absence, making it impossible to say cleanly which one is driving it. What I keep returning to is the image of Charles addressing Congress, standing in that chamber, talking about reconciliation and renewal, and the remarkable partnership between two countries that once went to war with each other and found their way back. Reconciliation, renewal, remarkable partnership. The words that described the relationship between two nations, and that did not, on this visit, describe the relationship between a father and his younger son, who lives 2,700 miles from where that speech was delivered. Harry said his mother's death taught him that time was not guaranteed, that the people you love can be taken without warning, and without the chance to say what needed to be said. He has carried that lesson through his adult life. It is there in his mental health advocacy. It is there in his Invictus work. It is there in the memoir he wrote, however painfully, because he needed the world to understand something about what grief does to a person when it is not allowed to be expressed. And it is there in the words he said in September, "I do not know how much longer my father has." Charles is 77 years old. He has been treated for cancer. His health, while reportedly stable, is not something that anyone around him treats as indefinite. The window for a proper reconciliation, the kind that would allow Harry's children to know their grandfather in the way that children deserve to know their grandparents, is not unlimited. And this week, that window was in the same country, and it did not open. Whether it opens in the future, whether the Invictus Games in Birmingham in 2027 provide the occasion, whether some private communication between Harry and his father produces a visit that is not on any official schedule, whether William's harder line softens enough to allow Charles to follow his own instincts toward his son, none of that is known. None of it is certain. These are people navigating one of the most complex family situations in the world, in public, under scrutiny that would break most of us. But the image that this week leaves me with is not the address to Congress. It is not the state dinner, or the White House tea, or the anniversary celebrations in Virginia. It is a father who flew across the Atlantic, who stood in the Capitol, who spoke about reconciliation to the most powerful legislative body in the world, and who, for 4 days, was on the same continent as his son and his grandchildren, and did not make the journey the rest of the way. I do not know whether that was a choice or a constraint, whether it was driven by diplomacy or by something more personal, whether it will matter in the long run, or whether it is simply one more entry in a long list of missed moments between two people who once had a different relationship. What I do know is this: family is complicated, time is limited, and the distance between Washington and California is in the end much shorter than the distance between two people who have hurt each other and have not yet found the words to come back. I would love to know your thoughts on this, whether you think Charles made the right decision, whether you believe the absence was practical or personal, whether if you were in Harry's position, you would have hoped for a different outcome. Leave your thoughts below, because the conversations on this channel are always thoughtful, and this one deserves a thoughtful conversation.